Very good morning to all. I hope you are doing great. I am also good. Very warm welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Dr. Reena and I am so happy to have you here. In today's video, we are going to talk about this topic inflation, concept types and measurement. Let's start with the concept of inflation. Inflation is the sustained increase in the general price level of goods and services in an economy over a specific period. As inflation rises, the purchasing power of money decreases. That means you need more money to buy the same quantity of goods and services. For example, you want to buy a smartphone, okay, of you can say like you want to buy an iPhone. Its price is 1 lakh. Okay, so you buy a one phone at rupees of 1 lakh. That means if the prices rises, then the quantity is decreasing. And for example, uh, one another example is you buy a tent office in 10 rupees. Okay, so it's totally depend on the money. If price of the money is increases, then you can purchase a less quantity. Next, we have the key features of inflation. It is measured over time, monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Apart from that, moderate inflation is often considered as a sign of a growing economy, while hyperinflation can lead to economic instability. Let's talk about the deflation. Deflation is the opposite of inflation, occurs when prices consistently falls. You can see in the mall or in other shops when you want to buy a clothes, then sometime what happen, there may be the sales, and at the time of sales the prices of the product is decreases. At that time you are able to buy more products at a less price. So this is the example of deflation. Next, we have types of inflation. Inflation can be classified based on various criteria. First one is based on speed, and in based of speed there are four things included. First one is creeping inflation, walking inflation, galloping inflation, hyperinflation. And second, we have based on causes, in which we basically consider demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, built in inflation. Next, we have based on scope. There are we basically consider two things: headline inflation, core inflation. And fourth type is based on control, where we basically include two things: open inflation, suppressed inflation. So let's start with the based on speed. So first one is creeping inflation. Creeping inflation, that means the price rise is slow and gradual, one third annually, often considered healthy for economic growth. Okay, next we have walking inflation, that means moderate price increase with 3 to 10% annually, can affect the purchasing power, but it is manageable. Next, we have galloping inflation, rapid and high inflation, and it increases above 10% but less than 50% annually. It leads to economic instability. Next, we have hyperinflation, that means the prices rise exponentially. It's over 50% monthly and often caused by political instability or loss of confidence in currency. For example, Zimbabwe in 2008. Next, we have based on causes. First, we have demand pull inflation, which means it occurs when aggregate demand exceed aggregate supply. For example, increased consumer spending due to rising income. Next, we have cost push inflation. That means a rise is When production cost, for example, your wages, your raw material is increases, and for example oil prices hike leading to higher transportation cost, right? Okay, next we have built-in inflation, that means caused by a wage price spiral. Higher wages increase production cost leading to price hikes. Next we have based on scope. First we have headline inflation, that means measures to the total inflation in the economy including volatile items like food and energy. Next we have core inflation. Core inflation which excludes volatile items, food and energy to provide a stable measure of inflation trends. Next we have based on control. Open inflation, inflation that is visible and uncontrolled. Next we have suppressed inflation, prices are controlled by government policies such as subsidies or price caps. Next we have measurements of inflation. This is the next topic that I already mentioned in the previous slide, so let's start with this topic now. Inflation is measured using price indices which track changes in the prices of a basket of goods and services over time. The two main methods are, first one is consumer price index, we can call it CPI, and next we have wholesale price index, we can call it WPI. So let's start with CPI, consumer price index. It measures changes in the retail prices of goods and services consumed by households and its components which include food, housing, clothing, and transportation. Widely used as an indicator of cost of living changes. Its formula is CPI inflation rate is equal to CPI in current period minus CPI in base period divided by CPI in base period into 100. So we can calculate the CPI inflation rate in this by using this formula. Okay, basically what you want to do, you have to take the difference of two things. First of all, CPI in current period and CPI in base period, and after that divide this difference with the CPI in base period and also multiply with 100. Then you are able to find the CPI inflation rate. Next we have wholesale price index, that we call WPI. It tracks the price changes at a wholesale level before reaching the consumer. Apart from that, the components include raw material, intermediate goods, and finished goods. It often used for accessing inflationary pressures in production. And to calculate the WPI, wholesale price index inflation rate, we can take the difference of these two things, WPI in current period and wholesale price index in base period, divided by WPI wholesale price index in base period, and multiply this with 100. So in that case, with the help of this formula, you can calculate wholesale price index inflation rate very easily. Next we have GDP deflator. It measures price changes for all goods and services included in GDP, more comprehensive than CPI or WPI. And to calculate the GDP deflator is equal to, first you have to take real GDP and it's divided by nominal GDP and multiply with 100. Next we have effects of inflation. There are two effects, positive effects and negative effects. First of all, let's talk about the positive effects. It increases spending and investment in case of moderate inflation, and it reduces the burden of debt. Next we have negative effects, reduces purchasing power and saving, hurts fixed income groups, for example retirees, distort resource allocation and may lead to speculative activities. Next we have controlling inflation. Government and central bank are used are use the various measures to control the inflation. First one, they basically use a monetary policy and fiscal policy, supply side measures, administrative measures. So let's understand one by one. First, we have to start with the monetary policy. It basically targeting policy increases the interest rate to reduce the money supply. Open market operations, selling government securities to absorb liquidity. Next, we have fiscal policy, in which basically reduces the public spending. Apart from that, also increasing taxes to curb demand. Next, we have supply side measures. It increasing production of goods and services and removing supply bottleneck. Next, we have administrative measures, price control and rationing. Apart from that, subsidies for essential goods. Come to the conclusion that we already discussed the whole topic that I mentioned in the first slide. So, come to the conclusion. Inflation is an integral part of an economy reflecting growth and challenges. Understanding its concepts, types, and measurement helps policymaker and individual make informed economic decisions. While moderate inflation promotes growth, excessive inflation need to be controlled to maintain economic stability. Next, we have these are the multiple type question based on inflation, concept, types, and measurement. So, first question is, which of the following measures inflation in the economic ecosystem? So, right answer is B and D. B, that means consumer price index, and D, GDP deflator. Next, we have, which one of the following measures better explain inflation in the economic ecosystem? So, right answer is A, consumer price index. Next, we have core inflation is a measure of inflation that is based on which of the following? So, right answer is C, exclude the food and energy prices. Which of the following is considered a cause of demand pull inflation? So, right answer is B, increase in aggregate demand. Next, we have which index is commonly used to measure inflation in India? So, right answer is D, wholesale price index. What does the Phillips curve illustrate? Right answer is A, relationship between inflation and unemployment. Next, we have which type of inflation is characterized by a rapid increase in prices often exceeding 50% per month? So, right answer is D, hyperinflation. Which of the following is not a tool used by central banks to control inflation? So, right answer is C, changing tax rates. Next, we have which of the following statement is true about cost push inflation? So, right answer is B, it results from rising production cost. Next, we have GDP deflator is a measure of which of the following? So, right answer is C, price level of all domestically produced goods and services. Which of the following best describes stagflation? So, right answer is A, high inflation with high unemployment. Next, we have which of the following is an effect of hyperinflation? So, right answer is currency devaluation. Next, we have which of the following indices exclude food and energy prices to measure underlying inflation? So, right answer is B, core CPI. Which of the following policies is used to combat demand pull inflation? So, right answer is B, contradictory monetary policy. That is all about in today's video. Thank you so much. If you like this video, then do like and subscribe my channel. Have a nice day. Bye bye. Take care.